Good morning, everyone. Welcome to December 12th. And today we have Tim Wendelboe for the Daily Roaster. Thanks for joining us and giving us a little of your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
And before you say what it is, I'm going to brew a V60 with it. What would you suggest per 100? Or I'm going to put 200 here. How much coffee would you recommend?
Normally on our V60 recipes, we normally use 60 grams to a liter, so that would be 12 grams, I guess.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what grinder you're using as well, but that's a good start at least.
Okay, I'll go for that then. Do you have
if you have a grinder that's grinding very unevenly, then you might have to go up to like 65 grams or something, and that's just because if you get a lot of this kind of huge big particles, they don't really extract that well, so you kind of need to compensate by adding more coffee, or you could sieve them out and grind them once again.
Yeah, so grind more coffee to make up for the grounds that aren't doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. But I see you have a pretty good hand grinder, so that should be okay, I think, with 60 grams.
They look awfully big, these ones.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us about them?
Yeah, should I say what it is, or?
Yeah, now let us know.
Okay, so this is a Pacamara variety. A Pacamara variety is a hybrid between Maragogipe, which is, I think it was discovered in Brazil. It's like a typical mutation from memory. So it's a huge tree with huge leaves and huge coffee beans, huge coffee cherries. And then that's kind of cross-pollinated with a Pacas variety, which is a Bourbon mutation, which is a very short variety. And this particular Pacamara was actually produced in Honduras, in Chinacla, which is in the state of La Paz, which is kind of south towards the border of El Salvador. It's produced by Marysabel Caballero and Moises Herrera. And I think it's safe to say that they are one of the best producers in Honduras. Although they haven't won the Cup of Excellence more than, I think, once, they've come second place several times. And so they come from like a pioneering coffee family. And their house is in Marcala, which is where they actually dry the coffee, at least these kind of special lots. And the farms are kind of situated in a mountain area, which is about 30-minute drive from their house, actually. So they have quite a lot of land, I think around 150 hectares in production, but most of it is the Catuai variety, which is like a Brazilian variety. And then they have a small piece of land where they grow Pacamara. And funnily enough, they have planted it on higher altitudes and lower altitudes. And this particular one is from the lower altitudes because that's the one that actually tastes better, believe it or not. So it's at least in their case, it's not always that the higher the altitude, the better the coffee. So it really depends on the variety. So,
do they know why the lower altitude one here tastes better on this one?
They say it's just particular with that Pacamara variety that it kind of likes to grow in a lower altitude in their climate. And you have to specify their climate because they have extremely cold climate. Sometimes they have frost in the higher altitudes. So I guess that's the way it is. And maybe also because the Pacamara was developed in El Salvador in hotter climate. So that's probably why it likes a little bit hotter climate than their highest altitudes. Now, this particular lot is actually only 150 kilos, and it's actually just one picking. So normally, when you buy like bigger lots from the Caballeros, normally they separate by daily pickings, but sometimes you just mix a couple of daily pickings together just to kind of build a bigger lot so it's easier to process and so on.
Yeah.
But what's good is that Moises, I think he has now maybe 10 different varieties in production, and he has built a small micro mill, milling green coffee. So he's kind of in control, not only with a wet mill where he kind of removes the cherry and ferments the coffee and washes the coffee. And then afterwards he dries the coffee on raised beds by his house, which is shaded. So he has complete control of that. And afterwards, before export, he actually does the dry milling as well, which means color sorting, sorting by size, all these kind of things. So I think, the quality has improved year by year just because he has more control now.
Mm-hmm. Does he produce all washed coffee, or does he have naturals as well?
Oh, they produce a little bit of naturals, but I'm not the biggest fan of naturals, as you may know. So and I also think, especially in their climate, it's quite difficult to dry naturals properly. So they tend to be quite funky in flavor, and that's kind of not the attribute that I'm particularly fond of. That's, for me, that kind of ferment flavor is almost the same regardless of where the coffee was grown. So you kind of lose the terroir flavors. So this particular coffee is washed. They actually use this demucilage remover. So it's kind of a machine that removes the skin and pulp from the cherry and then washes away a little bit of the mucilage. But then they do an additional fermentation afterwards, which they didn't used to do, but now they do. And then after that, they wash it clean with water, and then they put it onto the drying tables. And I think it dries for like 14 days at the moment, around there, depending on the climate, of course.
Yeah.
And they have like 2 or 3 people working by their house just taking care of the drying. So it's constantly raked and covered during the hottest time of the day, and they check it with moisture and water activity all the time. And so it's a pretty well processed coffee, and I think the flavor is very clean, and funnily enough, maybe a little bit more towards this kind of berry fruit this year. Last year it was a little bit more towards these kind of tropical fruits that tend to be a little bit more floral in flavor. But yeah, it's a bit more winey this year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just about to ask then. So when people are tasting it, what should they look for in the cup?
No, I think I don't really like to say what people should look for, because I think flavor perception is a personal thing. Like, we have different references, and a very good example is what I learned in Honduras many years ago, when I was quite an unexperienced cupper, and we tasted a coffee, and for me that was just like clear strawberry flavor. There was nothing else in that cup. It was just strawberry, and all the Honduran guys said, "Oh, it's a clear mango flavor," because the strawberries in Honduras are not, as good as here in Norway, and we rarely eat mangoes, so we kind of just have 2 different references. But if you want some references, I think, for me, the acidity is more like this kind of red or grape-like, or you can say winey as well. And then I just don't think it has that kind of same complexity as when I call a coffee winey. It's normally because it's a little bit more complex. So grape-like acidity, and I think, some red berries, but kind of first and foremost, maybe more of these kind of ripe stone fruit flavors. And some people think Pacamaras tend to have like this oniony flavor, but I think this particular Pacamara, they have selected a Pacamara that doesn't really have that much of that kind of characteristic. So I think it's one of the better Pacamaras that I have tasted over the years. The top one probably being the one from Elin Herta in Guatemala, and this is probably one of my top 3.
Well, thanks for all the information about today's coffee, Tim. Sorry, my video hopped out. The battery died on me, but I'll be back for the next day. All right, so we'll see you again in a few days.
Fantastic.
All right, thanks.